Today we're trying out the Wooble. I've never Woobled before, and you know, they've been all over the place. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, What the Beck. Today, Wooble. You've seen them all over the place because they are like the big thing. It, I think, was started as a way to make it easier for people to get into crochet and amigurumi specifically. They have proprietary yarn. Their yarn costs a lot of money, like $12 each or something like that. And their kits are pretty expensive, which is why I've never reviewed them before, because I like to ball on a budget. I don't like to spend a ton of money on a kit unless I know it's something I really like. So if I really like this, maybe I'll get another one. But I got this one because it was $1.99 at a thrift store that benefits animals. So I decided, you know, I'll give $2 to the animals. And I also, you know, went in the little cat room that they had there. It's a really cool shop, by the way. Go there if you are in Frederick. But yeah, the Wooble. My friends have tried these before, and I think they liked it, but I feel like, how can it compare to the experience I had when I learned to crochet? So that's what I'm going to figure out today. Now, this is secondhand. Not everything was included, so I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt that it did come with everything that it says it does on the back, which is yarn, a video to teach you how to do it, a, what does that say, pre-started piece, 4mm crochet hook, which you can see here I have supplied my own, stuffing, plastic eyes, a yarn needle, and online instructions. So let's just see what's in here. I woobled all over the place. Okay, get back here. So this is empty now. I have the yarn, which is pre-started in rainbow. I have somebody's 90s shoelace. That's gonna be a cat toy. And I have stuffing. So I'm not sure why this person took out the hook and the eyes and left the rest, but I'm gonna supply my own from my stash and assume that they were supplied. So to get started, we have this magic ring here. It is already started, and there's a loop. I'm assuming that maybe the person started this because you can see that it's the start of the second round. I'm just gonna undo it until the first round, and we will go from there. Okay, I got it back to the starting 6 single crochets, and I kind of pulled this tight because, you know, it's not the fault of the person that did that when they started the project. It's not the Wooble's fault that they loosened it a bit. So I tightened it up and I'm ready to get started. So I have to scan this QR code to get my instructions. So I'm gonna grab my iPad and we'll do that. It's opened up, the Woobles.com. Now, let's see. I don't need to be upsold. I need my kit. Here we go. Okay. So this is called Disco Fred the Dino. Where is my pattern? Hello? Did they take it out? That's gonna be so frustrating, actually. Okay, so I think me getting this secondhand has a pitfall in that whatever instructions were included on the inside had the correct QR code, because this just takes me to the general website and I need the pattern to make my dinosaur. So I went to the Woobles YouTube page and they have like the videos of different steps, but it's not made with the Wooble yarn, so I don't know if this is outdated. It says 4 years ago. I think it's a little bit before Wooble time. You know, PW, pre-Wooble, but I have a friend who has done this kit before with the regular dinosaur, so I'm going to text her and see if she still has the availability to find the video, and we can move forward from there. All right, so shout out to Cassie, who had made Fred before and got me the link to the instructions. I understand why they are, you know, giving a password and stuff like that, but I was in a weird spot because I got mine secondhand. I understand they're not trying to sell secondhand, and it makes sense to put their intellectual property pattern and all that behind the paywall. But I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, Cassie, for my code. Now we're in here. I have a bunch of intro videos here. I'm only gonna watch one because, as we all know, I know how to crochet. I'm kind of just reviewing like the pattern and how it seems for a beginner, because I'm not exactly a beginner. But I am gonna watch like the overview video and give a little review of that. So let's just watch this here.
With this kit, you're gonna learn how to crochet and in the process make a cute plushie.
Okay, so I did watch that overview video. It was really short, which I think is good for a beginner because, you know, you don't want to be too overwhelming. I didn't get too much information from the overview except that we're starting from the head and going down, which they refer to as like being upside down, which I don't personally think that. I think it makes sense that the bottom of the plush is where you end, but you know, to each their own. I, again, am not going to watch all these videos, but I do want to get into the pattern. But before I do that, I want to mention that the videos here, they do seem to be very good, well-paced, they're slow enough, they are like very specific, and because I got mine secondhand, some of the stuff is missing, and you know, I'm not having extra stitch markers in mine, but I think the fact that they choose to include those is good for beginners. So far it's so good, but I want to get crocheting, so let's learn how to do the body. Okay, so this is like, I don't know, it seems fun to me. I was a little worried about like having it go pretty slow because I do have a tendency when I watch video tutorials to feel like they're going too slow for me, and I'd rather just have a written one. I can't find the written one, and I am not going to, you know, spit in the face of Cassie and say, I'm not going to use these videos you sent me because I want to go fast. So I'm like making myself slow down, and it's kind of putting me into like the kindergarten mindset where it's like, okay, I have to look at the teacher, see what's going on, and then I get to do it. So even though right now, like, it's a very basic pattern, it's just a normal circle, I'm actually enjoying it more than I thought I would, and I think it's mostly just because I've like set this time aside to like, you know, I don't know, bleh. I don't know what's going on. I'm in a good mood today, I guess, but I am appreciating the little tips that the instructor is giving. Like, for example, they suggest that like you can have a paper and pen nearby to help you keep track of when you're alternating stitches. So like if you're a beginner, you might have trouble visually like distinguishing the difference between like an increase and a single crochet. So they say like, okay, well, you can use a piece of paper to mark, I just did a single crochet, so my next one is an increase. And as someone who is like a visual learner and just like very tactile, if you can't tell from my hyper focus being crochet, I do that all the time, so it's just nice to see that someone else is using like the paper and pen method to keep track of their stitches. I don't do it for as minute of like repeats within a round, but if I am doing an irregular pattern like my dragon, for instance, I will mark like, okay, I did the 15 half double crochets, I'll cross that off, and then I did 12 single crochets and I cross that off. I'm a pattern marker upper and I'm not ashamed, and I think it's great that they're encouraging other people to do things that will help them like keep track of their crochet. They also, and this is so nice, like, okay, the cat's going crazy, but they also include like the pattern could also have been written like this, which I find super helpful because even though we have a like standard way that we like abbreviate crochet stitches, the pattern writing sphere is not like homogeneous, right? There are people who say 2 single crochet in next stitch, and there are people who just say increase, and there are people who say single crochet increase, and there are people who say 2 single crochet increase. So I think it's really nice that they're saying this still means the same thing, and that would help someone who's learning to actually be able to use other crochet patterns, which, I don't know, coming into this, I kind of figured they want you to use their proprietary stuff, but my heart has grown 3 sizes today, and I think this is really nice that they're showing you like this isn't the only way it can be done, and you know, it might inspire people to try other patterns as well. Y'all, I'm sorry my clips are so segmented, but I don't want to give the pattern away, so I'm not filming while I'm watching the video. But this person making the videos is like, I don't know, they're coming across as very sweet to me, and I really do think now that these are probably really good for beginners, because they're very clear and upfront about like, what is a mistake you could make? What is something you could be worried about? So like, for example, this round is uneven, meaning it's not the same repeat the whole way around. He got the zoomies. And they mention, don't worry if you think you didn't do it right, it's an uneven round. As long as you follow the instructions, you're on the right track. So I think that's super sweet, and yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun making this. It helps that the yarn is rainbow. I love rainbow. But yeah, that's what's going on right now. Y'all, I think I've been converted. At least for people who are just learning how to crochet, if you have the money for the kit, I'm gonna go ahead and say you should get one. It's phenomenal. Okay, the yarn is like nice and all. I know people really like the yarn because you can't split it. But it's also like the background knowledge that they provide, like telling you what the right and wrong side looks like and how you can identify that, helping you figure out like how to hold your hook that's like most comfortable for you, that type of stuff. It really does just feel like your friend is teaching you to crochet. And you know, I learned from YouTube, but this is just like, it's phenomenal. I don't know how else to say it. I really like it. I really like the background tips especially. Even if I don't crochet another Wooble, I'm happy that I tried this just to have the experience of someone who has made a Wooble. And by the way, Sammy is going crazy for that little shoelace thing that was in the package. So even though that wasn't part of the kit, it gets a 10 out of 10 from him. Okay, so I have completed up to row 9. There's this little head. I really like it so far. My one gripe is that I feel like the yarn is a little thick for the hook size. I think like a 4.5 would be a little better. I tend to use yarn that's like the same size as my hook, but I guess because this is like padded instead of plied, it stays pretty thick. So it also has a little bit of more resistance than what I'm used to, which I think is good for a beginner because it can help you actually like process what you're doing, and like when you pull the yarn through, what you're doing, and look at the motion and see what's happening. But yeah, I am now at round 10, which the step of the pattern is actually 10 different rows all together written out like a normal pattern like I'm used to. So we're gonna do a little time lapse of me working through this, and then we'll check in again. Okay, so I just finished round 15 and I'm a little worried. I'm not like upset or anything, but normally at this point, most designers would have you add the eyes to the head so that it's over and done with and you don't have to worry about it. And then also start stuffing the head. We're still working without stuffing our eyes. I'm gonna continue doing what they told me to because I'm testing the pattern and everything, but I'm just like, I want to add the eyes so bad, but they don't tell me where to put them yet, so I can't do that. Disco Fred coming through, that Fred is you. Okay, so I am done round 19, and I can confirm that the last 10 rounds that I just did are equivalent to one 21-minute Passionate Kelsey video, so I got to catch up on that while I was watching. I hope the next step is to put the eyes in and stuff this guy, but we'll have to see. Okay, after watching the next video, I am pleased to announce we will be adding eyes and then stuffing. I have my selection of eyes here because I had a secondhand kit. It didn't come with the eyes. They do have a disclaimer that like if you're planning to make this as a cat toy or a gift for a baby, you don't use safety eyes, so I really appreciate them saying that. Luckily for me, I'm going to keep my Wooble. so I can use safety eyes. So I get to pick what size eyes I want to put. I think the eyes in the kit are a little small, so I might use a size a little bit bigger. I also can't find exactly where I'm supposed to place them, so I'm gonna guess based off of the image. I'm sure if you got a brand new kit, they would tell you in your paperwork, but I don't have that, so I'm just guessing. I'm gonna put it like there. And yeah, let's give this guy some shape. I do wish they had told us earlier to put the eyes in, but I kind of get why they might not have wanted to do that. And I think it's because these are, I'm trying to put my eyes in, because these are aimed towards beginners, a beginner might not like what's coming out and they might want to try again. So having the eyes not inserted means you still have them to use later. I did enjoy the fact that the case that the eyes and extra little bits of yarn that are included is called the Woobly Bits. And I'm going to be referring to many things as Woobly Bits from now on. Now this stuffing is what came with it. This is unopened, it's pretty full. So I'm guessing that this is how much our little guy is gonna need. I was a little worried about it, but I think if you fluff it up, I don't know if they tell you to do this because I haven't watched the stuffing it video yet, but I always do this before I stuff my plushies. And yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, stuff his little head and get that in there. I think this actually might be enough, so we shall see. I'm just gonna, there's his little head stuffed. I do like the yarn. I wish there was some like purple in it. There's kind of like a dark blue, but no real purple. But yeah, here's that. I'm gonna save a little bit of stuffing because I know we have to stuff the tail. And I think the rest of it is gonna be flat, so I'm not gonna add too much in there. But yeah, there's my Fred at this point. Y'all, they tell you to pull your stuffing apart, and they even have this cool technique that I've never seen before where they recommend like looking at the diameter of the part that you're stuffing and just like pulling off a layer that's about that big. I usually just fluff it up, but you know, that might be a fun little technique to use in the future. But yeah, I stuff mine the way I normally do, but I appreciate that they said that. Okay, so they do say to do the invisible like closure at the bottom. I haven't pulled mine tight yet because I thought y'all might like to see that. So yeah, there's that. But they do it by putting their needle, how do I explain this? I pick up the front loop by going like this, and they do it by going like this. So that seemed a little unnatural to me. So I just did it the normal way that I do. But yeah, they still use that technique. I don't think it has necessarily any like bad effect if you do it that way. And then I guess I'm gonna learn how to weave in my ends the Wooble way by watching this video. Okay, so here's my like another very small gripe with this. They don't have you weave in your end, really. They have you go out through a different area of the plush, but you haven't done a knot or anything. You just close it up and put it into the bottom hole and bring it out through another area. I think that before, when they suggested that you might be making a Wooble for a baby or a pet, and they took into consideration that possibility when talking about the eyes, they might want to take that into consideration when it comes to weaving in your ends, because ends will come undone. I know these aren't things that go in the washing machine or anything like that. They wouldn't necessarily get a ton of wear, but I think if you're giving it to a child or a cat, you would definitely want to weave it in under some stitches and then go through. So that's what I did. Just another thing that maybe could be improved, but I'm still having fun. I really like my little guy so far. He's ready to go to the rave. And now I gotta make the rest of his little woobly bits. Okay, so I'm working on my tail now. They do teach you how to do a center ring, which is the non-magic version of the magic ring. And I personally, since I already know how to do magic ring and I'm comfortable with it, I did that. But I think that is a great way to teach a beginner to do in the round pieces. So that's cool that they teach you how to do that. They do mention that a magic ring can be harder. I don't know that it's necessarily like really hard. It's just a bit fiddly. And I feel this way about a lot of crochet stuff, like certain stitches and just like techniques. They're not necessarily hard, you just have to know how to hold the stuff you're holding and be a bit patient. And I think if you've got to this point, you've developed enough patience to learn how to do a magic ring yourself, especially because the very first one was started for you, but that's my opinion. So yes, now I'm making his little tail. I definitely think that I will have enough yarn. I'm wondering now, what am I gonna do with the little bit that's left after this? I might make a coaster or something because it feels like it's cotton yarn. But yeah, so I'm just making my little dinosaur a tail. And I think I'm also gonna make the little bumps that like decorate him separate, and then I'll meet with you when I go to sew those on. And then I think he also has little arms, so I'll meet with you when we do that. Y'all, they're having me do some no-sew craziness over here. I haven't done this in a while, so and it's not my preferred way to add pieces. I'd rather sew them, but I'm gonna follow the instructions, so you know I'm doing it properly. Okay, so eventually they do have you do a method that I like to do with my plushies, which is use your loose ends to help secure stuff. So they tell you, once you have your two ends for your little arm, you tie them together and then you hide them inside. That's what I would recommend doing for the bottom piece as well. Just like tie a knot around a little piece of one of the bottom stitches before you hide it, if you're not gonna do the standard like end like weaving method. But yeah, so he has one little arm. I'm gonna do his other arm and then make his spikes. Also, if it wasn't obvious, I'm supplying my own yellow yarn instead of using the Wooble yarn because that Woobly bit was taken out of my kit. So it's not the Wooble's fault, it's whoever bought it and then returned it. Alright, so I have finished making my 5 spikes and my little tail here. So it's time to attach them, and it's gonna be a lot of sewing. I'm okay with that. I get that some people kind of make it out to be like the worst part of making Ami. I like it. I like putting the little pins in and lining stuff up. And yeah, so I'm gonna start by putting his little tail on and then the spikes, and I'm gonna watch the video to see if there's any specific instruction, but I kind of know how to do it already. But you know, just for the experience, I'll watch the sewing video. And of course, I'm going to put all the yarn ends in the tail because it's free stuffing. But I will say that they did provide enough stuffing for the kit. So if I had used this, I would have had just extra yarn ends, but I'm not using it, so I'm gonna put them in there. I will say that sewing through this material, like this yarn, is a little bit difficult, and that's mostly because since you cannot split the yarn with your needle, you have to be really precise with like where you put the like tip of the needle in to make sure that it catches what you want it to catch. But it's not too bad. It's just something I thought I'd mention. I'm using a darning needle which has a blunt tip, and I'm not sure how sharp the tip of the plastic needle included in the kit would be, but I just find that it's a little bit easier when the yarn can split, like to sew the pieces in place, because then you can, you know, get the tip of the needle exactly where you want it to attach the piece. Okay, so I accidentally made 6 of the spikes instead of 5, but I think it's fine because he's just got an extra one on the top of his head. which is fine because that kind of hides the original magic circle, which I left intact to save time, but I just, the other person had already worked into them, so it was a little bit gappy up there, but you know, it's fine. It's now covered. So the only thing left is the embroidery on the belly, so let's go ahead and do that while I wrap up my thoughts about the kit. Okay, so overall, I think this is a pretty dang great way to get into crochet if you've never tried it before. The price is pretty high, and at $30 per kit, it's kind of like, I feel like you need to know, like, okay, I'm gonna start crocheting for sure, because if you don't, that's like a lot to spend at once on something you don't necessarily already like. But I do think this is great if you are, for example, a knitter who wants to learn how to crochet, someone who does a lot of other crafty things and just wants another crafty skill, or if you are someone who wants the specific item that will be made with the kit. So by that I mean you're not necessarily getting it as like I'm gonna just try this out, you know. It's a pretty steep price for someone who just wants to try something out. I think that it's more like if you know you're a crafty person, or if you're getting it as a gift for someone and you know that they have done crafts before, that makes sense. I don't know if the investment is something that I would recommend to someone who is like total beginner with anything to do with dexterity. I don't know that I recommend it as the starting point. I would still recommend getting a crochet hook and literally like a $3 or $2 ball of yarn from Walmart or something like that. Secondhand yarns are also a good option, but I feel like the teaching that comes along with the kit is very valuable, and I guess that it is worth it if you want that like one friend is teaching you how to crochet experience without having to go get lessons or something like that. So I can also see it as like, okay, you get guided lessons throughout the project. Here's a little guy, by the way, just finished him up. It's pretty cute. So yes, I think it is worth it if you know the background of yourself or your person that you're getting it as a gift for. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, 30 is a lot of money, and I'm not typically a kit crafter, but if you want the specific dinosaur and you think that's worth it, go ahead and do it. I think the instructions were really clear. If I had a brand new kit, it would have came with literally everything that I needed, including enough stuffing for the whole piece, which is something that I've seen be a problem in other like kit review videos. It came with enough yarn, and there is more left over. Not enough to make a whole other project, but you could look up some other things, like other ami to make, maybe like a little ghost or something you can make with this amount. But I think this is a great kit and information. So I'm gonna say it gets a thumbs up from me. As a person who has crocheted for 10 years now, I don't know that I will be buying another Wooble kit, but the patterns were easy enough to follow. The background information was really good, and yeah, I'm kind of rambling now. I like my little woobly guy. I'm happy to finally have him done so I can put him on my little shelf. And let me know if you've used the Wooble kit before, how many woobly bits are hanging around your house. I know my cousin has tried it before, and like I said, my friend who got me the code to make him has made Fred before. So they liked it, but again, it's pretty expensive, so it's up to you whether you think it's worth it. But yeah, that's how I went with my little disco dino Fred here, and I will see you in my next video. So make sure you hit like and subscribe and hype the video because I'm a small creator and that really helps me out. All right, I'll see you in my next one. Bye.